was instructed to use this mic when I kick this thing off for the sake of the live streaming or the recording or whatever. So, there you have it. So glad you're all here this morning, and welcome. Thanks for working this into your daily schedule. What are we going to do today? Pete's going to instruct us and inspire us till about 12:15 when we'll take a break for lunch in the cafeteria. We're all going to eat together. Then we'll be back here from 1 till 2, and we'll be on our way. There are groups who are joining us today by live streaming, hence thanks for your accommodation for being here. We have a zone gathering in Yarmouth, in the church in Yarmouth this morning, and a similar kind of gathering in Easton, Maine. And we have a scattering of other people who'd asked about live streaming capacity, so hence this accommodation. This was the easiest place for them to do this, them meeting Kingswood. So it's a unique environment, but thanks for your flexibility and yours. And so we're glad that you're here. You all know Pete, I think, have met him previously, know of him. He's one of our own boys. He's a grandma-nanner, for goodness sakes. So what could be better than that? And God has blessed his life and ministry, and he has things to say to us that we should and do want to hear. So thank you for being here this morning. Dale, would you offer prayer for the morning?
Lord, we thank you for this gift of another day, an opportunity to serve you, an opportunity to grow in our understanding of who you are and your plans for our life, and even to be better equipped, Lord, to do life as individuals, but also in ministry. Pray you bless Pete as he leads us today. Again, we thank you for all the team members who are a part of this day. We pray, God, that your blessing will be upon us all. In Jesus' name, amen.
God bless you, sir.
Thank you. So one of my mentors and kind of life coaches is a guy by the name of Bo Eason. Many of you don't know him, but he's a ex-NFL football player, and now he's a nationally acclaimed motivational speaker. And Bo tells one of my favorite stories about a guy by the name of Jerry Rice. Anyone here heard of Jerry Rice? Jerry Rice is arguably the best football player to ever have played the game. The game's been around 100 years, and Jerry Rice is by far the best receiver, and many would say the best football player to have ever played the game. So, Bo tells this story about Jerry, who, by the way, is so far ahead of the second place person in touchdowns that the second place guy is 60 touchdowns behind. Now, do you have any idea how long it takes anybody who is even a professional player to score 60 touchdowns? And yet, that's the second place guy to Jerry Rice. So, Bo is a football player, plays for Houston, and later in his career, he gets traded to the San Francisco 49ers, who just happen to be the team that Jerry Rice plays on. So he's like, this ought to be good. So the thing you need to know about Bo Eason is that playing the game as a young kid, he wasn't the most talented person in the world. So if he was going to make it anywhere, in high school, in college, or the NFL, he knew that he had to do certain things. One of those things was that he made a pact with himself that he would always be the first person to practice and the last person to leave. And for 18 years, that was exactly how it was with Bo Eason. So he gets traded to the 49ers, and he shows up for practice on the first day, and it's preseason. You know, it's warm-ups and everything. And right on time, Bo Eason gets there to the complex for the first practice an hour and a half before practice was to begin. Goes to the locker room, sure enough, it's empty. And so he's there, he's getting ready, goes out on the field, looks around, looks over here, he's just, yep, this is typical. And then he looks over there. And guess who's there? Jerry Rice. For the first time in 18 years, somebody had beaten him to practice. So eventually, the rest of the team comes along, and you've got Ronnie Lott, Joe Montana, some of the greatest football players again that have ever played, and they come out and they join the practice. We're ready to begin the practice. So if you know anything about that back then, Joe Montana was the quarterback, and he was a pretty good one at that too. And then you had the receivers, and Jerry Rice was a receiver. So to begin the warm-ups, okay, you're in preseason. In preseason, it's like, don't get hurt. Just kind of get in the groove a little bit, and then season will start. And some of the younger guys, it's like, can I make the team? And so they start in this first drill, and Joe Montana is over here, and it's hard to do here because I can't move a lot. They got kind of me restrained, but Joe Montana is here, and he's going to throw to the receivers, and then you've got the receivers, and there was actually 16 receivers in line. So the first guy gets up, and sure enough, they're going to do the first throw to him, and so he runs a little bit, jogs down, breaks off to the left, puts his hands out. Joe Montana throws him the ball. He gets it, walks it back to Joe Montana, gets back in line. Second guy gets all ready, gets focused, jogs out, moves to the left, boom, breaks it off, walks it back to Joe Montana. Now you got Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice gets up, gets focused, and boom, full out, breaks off to the left, catches the ball, and bam, all the way to the end zone, full sprint, all the way, 100 yards, all the way to the end zone, stops, turns around, sprints all the way back, full speed, hands the ball to Joe Montana. Bo's like, dude, gets back in line. Next guy gets up, does the same thing the first two did. Jogs out, catches the ball, walks it back to Joe Montana. Pretty soon it comes around, it's Jerry Rice's turn again. What does he do? Boom, straight out, breaks off, gets the ball, bam, 100 yards back. And he did that for 3 hours. Bo says, I think that day he must have run 10 miles. So after practice, Bo goes up. Everybody else has gone off the field. Last two left, Bo Eason, Jerry Rice. Bo goes up to Jerry and he's like, whew, dude. It's like, wow. Jerry, he says, what's all that? He says, you know, that running and everything. Jerry says, oh, you don't understand. He says, you see, every time these hands touch a ball, this body ends up in an end zone. He says, yeah, every time these hands touch leather, this body ends up in an end zone. Bo says, I think if we were on a bus going through the city and someone tossed him a ball, he'd find an end zone somewhere to run in when that was all over. So what's the moral of the story? You got the best football player ever. Has nothing to prove. Running full speed. Is it any wonder he's the best player? And the rest of them, they're just kind of jogging in place. The moral of the story is, one, you've got to learn with your money to be a Jerry Rice. And what tends to happen is we look at the best players and the people that are like the Jerry Rice of money, and we're like, well, shouldn't it be the lesser players out there? Like, they should be sprinting and he should be jogging. And so the message is that today I want you all to become Jerry Rices, and certain things about your life that are must-haves, you need to begin to take that attitude on, because that's what helps you be above the rest. We don't want to be average anymore. We want to be above average. And so I'm today hoping that in this group we have some people that will decide, I'm not going to be the average money guy anymore. Not that this is your business, but I'm going to excel and I'm going to do whatever it takes to thrive and to be the best that I can be. And I'm going to have to take on that spirit of a Jerry Rice, not the average players, in order to get there. Because I know you only have limited time to put into this in a given day or whatever. or year or life. So I'm actually going to do things a little bit different now that I've gotten started. I'm actually going to give you the 10 takeaways from today. Instead of at the end, I'm going to give them at the very beginning. Part of the reason for that is this. I actually want it to whet your appetite and help you say, I got to stay engaged for this because this is what I need. So, they tell me, and Bo Eason, by the way, if you ever check him out, gotta kind of watch the language a little bit, Bo, but other than that, he's one of the best speaking trainers in the entire world. Bo Eason, one of the best there is. Communication, I got a lot to learn, but what I've learned a lot from him. But one of the things they tell you is tell people what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them, and then you can leave, okay? So you're going to get it 3 times today. So the first 10, and the people that are here today that showed up, thank you very much. We got live bodies to speak to, or at least half alive. We'll get you alivened up here. We're going to run some Jerry Rice sprints here if we see anybody sleeping. So they have note-taking guides. So those of you who are watching from afar, you can actually write these top 10 takeaways down. The rest of the people here, they got to fill in the blanks, okay? So here we go. Top 10 takeaways that I want you to be able to take from here today are, number 1, you got to learn the difference between spending and investing. The difference between spending and investing. Listen, I could stop there and speak for the next 4 hours because there is a world of difference. When you spend something, it's gone. You never get anything back from it again. When you invest in something, and I'm not just talking about money. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Have you ever spent time with people, and then have you ever invested time with people? When I'm with this guy over here, Dr. Wilson, I invest time because I got something to take with me for the rest of my life. But far too many times, Dr. H.C., you know what I'm talking about. I've spent time with people, and I got nothing left after. I got nothing to take away except get me out of here. So it's the same with money. You can spend money or invest money, and my goal today is that you spend less and take more of that allocation and invest it. Number 2, time is money, leverage your time. Number 2, time is money, leverage your time. We're only given the same amount of allotment of time in any day. Why is it that some people get more done than others? One of the greatest books that I would tell you to read when you get time is The 12-Week Year. There is a book called The 12-Week Year. You can Google it, find it on Amazon. It's awesome because what it tells us is that if you set yearly goals, it's too far off in the future. But if you break them up in smaller segments, like a 12-week period, you can accomplish in 12 weeks what most people can accomplish in a year because it's a measurable goal. You can see the end in sight, but you can't see a year. It's too far away. So it's a great book on time management. And what I've realized in life is that you can never get the last minute back. You can get a new minute, but you can't get the last minute back. Just like when you have $1 and you give it to someone, spend it, invest it, or whatever, and that leaves your hands, that's gone. Now you can hopefully work and find a new $1, but you can't get that $1 back. And it's the same with time, and we're only given so much, 168 hours in a week. Why is it that some people can get more done? I'm here to tell you that time is money. And one of the greatest ways that I learned how to make more money was to leverage my time. I'm standing here today, and I am a financial advisor, and I'm going to do no investing of money, but I'm going to make a pretty good sum today because I have 7 other advisors down in Nashville that are meeting with clients that are going to invest money, make money for my business, and I'm going to make money today because I've learned to leverage my time. You can do the same. Anything that I can find not to do my own self, that I can get somebody else to, then I've earned more time for the things that actually matter in life. Number 3, financial education is not a choice. Now, find someone close to you. Wayne, Dale, all of you, find someone, look them in the eye and say, I have no choice. Do it right now. I have no choice. I have no choice. Okay, all of you look at me. Tell me together on 3. 1, 2, 3. I have no choice. 1, 2, 3. You don't have a choice. You know why? Because there are people out there that are studying to be engineers and doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs and things like this. And by nature of their very career, they're going to make more money than the average person. You chose a career, or God chose you for a career, where you typically make a lot less than what your education and other things demand, but that's the nature of the thing. So let me ask you, back to Jerry Rice. Wouldn't it stand to reason that the guys who haven't made the team yet, that you'd look at them and say, dude, you got to run all out, go all the way to the end zone, run 10 miles in 3 hours because you have no choice. Wouldn't you say that? You haven't made the team yet. You have no choice if you want to win, you want to play on the team, you got to work harder. So if you choose a career where there's not extra dollars, you can't just earn yourself out of a bad spot, right? I mean, am I right about that? You have no choice. You're given limited resources, and so because you're given limited resources, you of all people say, well, I don't have any money. Why do I need to learn about that? Now think about that for a second. If someone that has lots of money, doesn't it stand to reason they don't need to learn about that? But if you don't have lots of money, wouldn't it stand to reason that you, of all people, need to know this thing well? Because you got to stretch dollars like most people don't. This is one of the most important points that I can make about this, and something that I can rant about our education and about our even our Wesleyan colleges and that you're putting people out there that are paying top dollar for college, that have to, in most cases, get loans, putting them into a lower paying position. Of all the people on the planet who should get significant training in money and how to handle it, wouldn't it stand to reason those are the people that need to? You don't have to do that at MIT or Harvard, where they're going to come out and they're going to make $250,000 a year their first year. I mean, these guys, they can spend recklessly and they're still going to be somehow all right, maybe. But you have no choice. So you may hate finances. You may have been dragged here because your wife or husband or someone in the church, or maybe HC made you just feel like, you were that high if you didn't show up. I'm going to hopefully help you to leave with a whole different attitude than that this is something that if I'm actually going to be able to minister properly, people are chained. And I'm convinced, because they talk to me, HC, that there are pastors out there that are tied up financially, that can't minister free, that are sabotaging their ministry, that are acting out in other ways. But if you actually track it back, because I've talked to them, they've come and talked to me, it's money issues. That's a problem. 50% of marriages, and not just with pastors or Christians, but in the first 7 years, and the number one reason, once you uncover all the other things that they tell you, is money. You have no choice. If you have little, you got to make it go far, so you have no choice. Number 4, treat your family finances like a business. You have a business. Has anyone in here ever been the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of a business? Okay? A CFO of a business, they have board meetings and they sit down, they talk about income for the business and they talk about outgo, and there's profit and loss statements and there's budgets and there's things to go over that you do as a CFO. You are the CFO of your family finances. You say, well, that's a joke. Businesses make money and they have all kinds of resources. Well, let me tell you a little story. Yesterday, I got on Statistics Canada and I looked up and saw what the average family income, medium income. Now you say, well, that's not, pastors and the rest of the people is a little bit different sometimes. But I looked it up and saw that even in New Brunswick right now, family, now that may be 2 workers in some cases not, but it's like $70,000 a year right now. And obviously there's people making a lot over that, and there's significant people making under that. But in Prince Edward Island, it was close, Nova Scotia the same, and so on. So let's just kind of put it out there this way. A family today, whether it's 1 person working or 2, fortunate enough that with benefits and everything else, they make $50,000 a year, okay? Not unheard of. And some are making more, some are making less that are listening to this. But let's just say that it's and over the next 60 years, stands to reason that if you're lucky enough that you're making $50,000 right now, over the next 60 years, hopefully it goes up a little bit, right? I mean, you don't want 60 years later. But if you're 25 years old and you live to be 85, that's a 60-year period that a typical person before they die have had money coming into their home to exist on. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Don't want to embarrass anybody, but try to figure this out. If a family makes $50,000 and they happen to be around for 60 years, how much money is that collectively that they've been entrusted with their entire life? Anybody? $3 million. If I handed Den, he wouldn't mind that right now probably, but $3 million and said, Den, now take care of that, because it's got to last you for a while, but I'm going to, I want you to be a good steward of that, but that's yours, but it's your allotment, and you got to take care of that. Do you think Den would say, whoa, I got to get some training, I got to get some education, I got to figure out how to do this to make it last? I mean, what if he lives to be 85 and he didn't do a good job because he didn't know anything, and his money lasted until he was 80, but he lived to be 85. Well, he probably wouldn't live the last 5 years. You starved to death. But do you get the point? You have a family business. And just like you should have date nights and have days off, you need to have at least, if not more regularly, a monthly family meeting about your finances. You have a business to run. This is important. It can be 15 minutes, it can be 20, but for many of you, 30 minutes a month that you sit down and you say, okay, this has been our income, this is our outgo, what do we need to do? And we have a business here. And you would say that if a business had $3 million, you'd say, that's a viable business. They need to know how to handle that. The difference is that you get yours weekly or bi-weekly or once a month or whatever, and it doesn't seem like that over a course of your lifetime, but if you live normal life expectancy, you're going to. Number 5, money buys you choices. That's huge. You're tied up and you have not many choices when money has a hold of you, but money can buy you choices. Does it buy you happiness? Absolutely not. Does it buy you choices? Yes, it does. My daughter Ginger's gone through an unbelievably difficult situation over the last year where she had a nerve come out of nowhere in her back and literally for like 6 months she spent 23 hours of 24 hours a day on her stomach on the couch looking at the floor because it's the only way to get relief from her pain in her back. Lost her job, lost everything, still got her family, and couldn't clean the house. I mean, and there was like nobody out there could do anything about it. And she's looking on the internet. You put your computer on the floor and you find something to do in those 23 hours a day. And it literally was almost that bad. So anyway, eventually after 6 to 8 months, all of us looking everywhere, talking to doctors across the whole world and everything, there was a place that she could get a certain kind of injections or surgery or whatever. And so she was all excited, we were all excited, hoping that, it wasn't like this was necessarily going to be the answer, but to some people it had helped and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a week before the surgery's to start. She's got the date, we know the place, it's all figured out and everything. And she calls me a week before, and I can't tell a word she's saying because she's blathering over the phone. I mean, she is just in a desperate mess, crying her eyes out. It's the worst thing in the world. And finally, I get her calmed down and ask her what's going on. They just called me from the surgery center. And what they said is that a lot of the things that are part of the surgery are still covered, but this one part we thought was covered is not covered, and it's $12,500 or $11,500, somewhere in that range, and that might well be $11 million to her. And she's like, I can't get the surgery. And I'm like, of course you're going to get the surgery. Well, how am I going to get the surgery? Well, I'm going to write a check, and we're going to take it down. Who do I need to make it out to? And wouldn't you do that for your daughter if you had the money to do it? Of course you would, but many people can't do that because they would like to. Their heart wants to. They love their children to do anything. I might try to sell a car, but see, money can't buy you happiness, but she had the surgery. And she's going to be here tomorrow, and she is doing better. And it's been a lot of prayer, God's touch, healing, and this has helped. And she's not 100%, but it certainly has helped. Well, when you have margin in your life, it may not have to be $11,000 or $12,000, but it could be something that's $500 or $1,000. And if it's all consumed and there's no money there, you're limited in your choices, are you not? But when it is there, it doesn't buy you happiness, but it can buy you choices. It absolutely can. And having margin and having more, and not necessarily hundreds of thousands or millions just sitting on a shelf, but having that, it buys you choices. There are people that are not on the mission field today. There are people that are not pastoring churches today. There are people that, I could give you many illustrations because they got themselves so tied up in a money situation, their calling and their heart said, I wish I could go, and their wallet said, you can't do it. They got themselves in a situation, so it does buy you choices. Number 6, the difference between appreciation and depreciation. Some things appreciate, most things depreciate. So I'm going to teach you today how to put more money into things that go up in value and are lasting, and less money into things that go down in value and literally just go away. It's gone. Number 7, opportunity seeks out hard workers. Now, not that every hardworking person has more money than people that aren't hardworking, but it is a rule of life that a lot of times, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And so, opportunity seeks out hard workers. And a lot of times, opportunities are not coming your way for extra. And I'm not pointing at anyone individually. I make the same statement to every group that I talk to. Hard work. And in society today, putting in time is not necessarily work. And I don't want this to sound, self-boasting or anything like that. But at my office, I'm like Jerry Rice, not in many other ways, but in that, where I'm there first, and I'm there some days, and I'm working 2 to 2.5 hours before the first person is supposed to come in. And I have some unbelievably great staff people, some of the best in the entire world. And I'm convinced that a lot of days I've done more productive work, not just put in hours. There's a huge difference by the time they get there than they will the rest of the day. In the average workplace today, if an employer gets 3 quality productive hours out of the 8 hours that somebody's there, they're happy. They're there. Their body's there. They're looking at Facebook. They're talking to their friend. They're in the break room. They're fiddling around. They're Googling something. They're looking up. And if you get 3 quality hours, you're doing well. And so, people talk about the hours that they put in. That has nothing to do with actually what you get accomplished, and it's not just by counting the hours. Well, I can't understand why this isn't happening. I tracked it last week and I put in a lot of hours. I mean, showing up is not necessarily being productive. Number 8, it's more about discipline than dollars. We're going to talk more about discipline than dollars. Let me ask you something. Does it make more sense that if somebody's making all bad decisions with their money to just throw more money at the situation? I mean, that's like a person who's lost and going down the wrong road. Do you give them more motivation to just speed up and keep going the same old way they're going? Or do you want to, give them instructions so you can turn them around to get on the right road? I mean, so you think, or the average person thinks, I need more money. I'm telling you, you need more discipline. I need more discipline. We all need more discipline, because here's the thing. I could name you right now people that you would recognize that are movie stars, entertainers, sports people that have made tens of millions of dollars that are bankrupt today. So did more money solve the problem with them? Absolutely not. If you're horrible with money, having more of it is not the answer. It's making better choices and being more disciplined with what you have is what is actually needed. You say, I need more money. So here's what happens. The guy making $40,000, he says, I'm almost getting by, Peter. If I could make $50,000, I'll be okay. I'd get that margin in my life. Do you know what the guy who's making $50,000 is saying? If I could just make $60,000, that would be the answer. Well, if $50,000 isn't for him, he needs 60, but the guy with 40 is looking at the guy with 50, the guy with 30 is looking at the guy with 40. I mean, it's just, that's not the answer. Now, there are 2 ways to have more money. Have more income and less outgo. And if you have both, one or the other will help you. But if you have both, wow, now you're really onto something. Number 9, how to pay cash for cars. I'm going to tell you how, as a first-year, very poor family of 5, age 25, church planter on Prince Edward Island, I bought my first car in cash, and I've never had a car payment since. In the first 15 to 16 years of my career life, I was a church planting pastor. So I did that then. Now, it's a lot easier now, but I've never had a car payment since 1984. And people look at me, oh, yeah, it's easy for you to say. Yeah, it wasn't easy then. But I did what other people wouldn't do to live like other people don't get to live. And so I'm going to teach you how to pay cash for cars. And maybe 2 people that hear this will decide that they're actually going to do that. The rest won't, but that's okay. If it's 1, I'd be happy, because you need to be paying cash for cars, and you can. It's a choice. You just choose not to. Now, it may be a little bit, because of the situation you're in, it may take a little bit of time, but you can get there if you want to get there, but most don't, so that's all right. Number 10, be abnormal. Normal is broke. Seriously. Normal is broke. If you want to be normal, be broke. If you want to have a little bit of margin in your life, not be wealthy, not be rich, but have a little bit of financial freedom, be abnormal. So those are the 10 takeaways. Is that going to be all right? What do you think, Tapper? Is that going to be all right, man? Okay. So next I got to tell you my story. So, because many of you, well, some of you, Wayne, Dale, Den, Greg, some of you were my college mates back here at Kingswood 40 years ago. But many of you watching, listening, you don't know much about Pete Benson. So let me tell you my story. And I tell you this for glory to God, and to tell you that, just to remind you, in case you hadn't been reminded today, we serve a God of a second chance, and God that can do miracles, not to bring any glamour or glorification to the horrible decisions that I made. But my wife and I grew up on Graham and Ann, grew up in Christian homes, went to Sunday school, church, did all the things you're supposed to do, going to youth group, everything, looked to be the, perfect, good Christian couple, people. And at the age of 17, when we're still in grade 11, I find out that she's pregnant and I'm going to be a dad and she's going to be a mom. So when you're a mere child yourself and you realize that you're going to be parenting a child before you even get out of 11th grade, when you find that out, it whacks you upside the head. I can remember a day that I was shortly after finding that out walking on Seal Cove Beach and looking out in the water and thinking, I could just walk out there and end it all. And then I thought, maybe I could get up to the Graham and Ann Ferry and get on that boat and go somewhere that nobody would ever know where I'm at. And I wouldn't have to face up with this, and I wouldn't have to put up with it, and everybody could be done with me, and Ginny's parents would take good care of her, and I could just start a new life somewhere else. Or I could man up as a child and decide that all the things that I'd been taught all my entire life were absolutely correct, and that God actually gave people a second chance, and that somehow He could give us a second chance if we would just hand over to Him the absolute disaster that we had created of our lives. And so the next Sunday, that was our decision. So we, at the end of a service in the Seal Cove Church, go up to the altar and pray at the end of service. And then, after prayer is over, stand in front of all the people that thought that we were the purest Christian youth couple on the whole island and tell them that we had been a fraud and that we had messed up our life, had lost all of, had lost our way and gone totally a different direction than what they had thought and that Ginny was expecting, and said, we have come up here today to ask for God's forgiveness, and we're asking for your forgiveness. And the church rallied around us that night, and from then on, much to actually our chagrin, although they let us, between grade 11 and 12, we were married. Lived in Ginny's parents' basement in a room, and in November, Ginger was born. And we did finish high school, but I know what it's like all summer long and every day to come home from school, throw your books on the counter, change your clothes, and go down to the smokehouse and work for the rest of the evening and on Saturday, because you got, at 17 and 18 years old, responsibilities that are adult. What's my point? We were in a place of desperation. Thankfully, we had a lot of people and support around us, and then at the end of grade 12, we came to Bethany Bible College. I can remember we got a bunch of hand-me-downs that we threw on the back of a pickup truck that wasn't ours, but somebody let us use to bring it up here and put our stuff in an apartment right down there on Spruce Street. We had no money, no jobs, no money to pay for college, no scholarships, and no clue, obviously. But we showed up here, and that was our beginning here. And at the end of those 4 years, when we left here and graduated, we had never owed one single dime of debt to the college or to anybody else. We literally left this place debt-free. Now, I do know that today, if that was our situation, I couldn't do that. The escalating costs of college education, that could not be done. It was then. Through a lot of miracles, opportunity finds hard work, and some gentleman down on Grand Manan Island let me go seining for 2 summers between the second and third and the third and fourth grade here, and it was like manna from heaven that God rained upon us and gave us an opportunity to leave here with no debt. A few years later, got a master's degree, never had any debt there either. But I tell that story to help you understand that in that situation when we put ourselves in, somehow God one day turned something on in my brain that said, you're 18 years old, you have a wife and a child, you got to learn how to make a dollar last. You've got to learn how to make, it was a place of desperation. Your back's up against the wall. You have no choice. You've got to learn how. By the time I was 30 years old, still a pastor, I'd read over 30 books about finances and money. It's like the guys with Jerry Rice. Doesn't it stand to reason that they're the ones that are in desperation? They're trying to make the team. Shouldn't they be working harder? Well, I, of all people, was not a Jerry Rice. I needed to learn how to make money work, how to stretch a dollar. Some of the things that we did here, and a lot of it's dumb luck and some of it's reading and everything, but we go into an apartment and there's 2 bedrooms. Well, all right, how do you make money? Well, you have a renter. We had a renter our first year down here, a staff person from Bethany Bible College. We said, we got a room. So we got a room. More money coming in, helped us pay the rent. So what does Ginny do? One, don't laugh, she learned to cut my hair because we could save money that way, and she cut it 5 days ago. She's cut it ever since the day that since we came here, because that was one thing that, there's 2 ways to have money, right? You make more or you spend less. You with me? So we had to spend less. So that's what you do. So what could Ginny do? We looked at her resources and talents. She can play the piano. Okay, so we arranged for her to be able to come up here to the chapel and teach people piano, and they let us use the piano down here. Back then they did anyway. And she gave lessons and actually made money, but we didn't even have to own the piano. What else could she do? Babysit. She had a baby. Well, let's take on more. So you take on 2 or 3. What does Pete need to do? He needs to work. So while I was here, and I still got to play basketball and do some fun things, but I don't know anything about electronics, so I got a job at the Met. Remember the Met? In the electronics department. I don't know anything about cars, so what did I do? I got a job out at Dave's Esso or wherever in the heck it is, and I pumped gas and checked people's oil. I had to ask somebody the first day, do you check the oil in the front? Do you open up the hood, or do you go to the back? Because that's how much I knew about cars, but I got a job there. And then, how many of you remember when the mill would ask us if we wanted to go out there between midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning to get rid of all the sawdust? Boy, that was pleasant while they were there. But they paid top dollar for you to do that. The only difference is, if your allergies were bad like mine, and you didn't get much sleep because you had a baby, and those were the 4 hours you might have gotten sleep, you didn't get sleep. And then, one more job, I actually had to clean the urinals and the bathrooms down at the old chapel and vacuum the floors during chapel. That's what you do. Like, when you're desperate. And the whole reason I'm telling you that is not to, brag on Pete. He's only here to talk about himself today. Not at all. What I am here to tell you, though, is that if you have little, shouldn't you, of all people, be desperate to find out. Now, what immediately some of you are thinking is, but I'm too spiritual. You know, all this talk about money. I don't even know why they made me come here today, because we're pastors and we're not in this for the money and all that kind of stuff. Well, it just so happens I've done a little research. And in the Bible, which I'm not the scholar, you guys are, but in the Bible, there's 2,350 verses. 2,350 verses that have something to do with money, stewardship, or possessions and how to use them, which is more than faith, prayer, heaven, and hell combined. Is it spiritual to talk about prayer? How about faith? How about heaven? Hell, is that okay still, Dr. H.C.? Is that good stuff? 2,350 verses, more than all four of those things combined. 15% of the words that came out of Jesus' mouth that are recorded in the Bible had something to do with the use of finances, possessions, money, and stewardship. So I guess it's not spiritual enough for us, but it's spiritual enough for him. So this is a part of our life. Now, I tell the analogy that I graduated from Graham and Ann High School, and in order to graduate, I learned the fine art of the rules of knowing how to play badminton. No, seriously, in our physical education class in the last year, part of the instruction was that we learned to play badminton, whether we liked it or not. And they took us out there on the floor and they showed you where to stand and you hit the bird and go over the net and everything. And we learned how to play. And actually, Ginny and I were pretty good at it and actually came third in the province in mixed doubles in badminton. That's our claim to fame. But I learned to play badminton. Now, since I left high school and came here, and for the rest of my life, I have never picked up a badminton racket or played badminton my entire life. Not since. Now, in high school or college, I did not get 1 hour of instruction on how to handle money. But every day since the day I left high school, every day including today, I already decided, I made a money decision. There was free coffee, oh this is terrible, I know I'm a bad example, at the motel, and I spent $1.85 and bought this. That's a financial decision. Every day of my life, I make financial decisions. We should be desperate for instruction on this, because this isn't something, okay, there are some things that are electives. You know what I mean? Like, is bathing or showering or wearing deodorant, do you consider that, this is participation, do you consider that an elective or a must-do? Are you with me? There are some things in life, badminton now is an elective. Back then, I had to take it. But there are things in life that are electives, and then there are other things that are must-dos. Let me tell you, Zig Ziglar was onto something when he said that money is not the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta-have-it scale. Try to live very long without any. I mean, seriously, without any coming into your household. No paycheck, no somebody's, feels sorry for you and sends you money. Just try to live without it. You can't. It's a part of our life. It always will be. And you can either say, well, I don't know anything about it and I don't really like about it. Well, you might not like showering either, but we appreciate it if you do it. Seriously. I mean, there are things in life, you don't have to try to become an expert. You don't have to love it. You just have to do it. There's certain things in life that you look at and you put it on the list of, I have to learn this. And my instruction to you and all pastors or anybody that has answered the call to be in full-time Christian ministry, this is an absolute, I must do this. When my back was up against the wall, I may not have liked to learn about money when it started, but I had to. It was a must-do. I had little coming in, and I was on the hook for responsibilities when I was a mere child myself. You would say, you have no choice. Yes, I had no choice. I'm saying, you have no choice. We all right? Is this helpful at all? Because here's the thing. Those of you who came here today expecting me, I know you're going to be disappointed, to spend most of the time giving you investment advice on what to put money into that you're going to get rich or anything, I can just tell you, you can go home now, because that's not going to happen. Now, I can do some of that in another world, but here today, my goal is not to give you all the answers on what to do with money. It is to motivate you to leave this place and actually avail yourself of some of the resources that I'm going to give you and point you to, so that you can learn about it and go home and tell your spouse or significant other or somebody there that I learned today that this is something that we have to focus on and we have to treat like a family business, and it's important and it's honoring to God. And when He comes back someday, He's not just going to be asking us about the 10%, He's going to ask us about the 100%. And a lot of times when we have little, we have a tendency to point to people who have rich, and we tell them all the ways that they're not doing what they would do with the money that, if you had it. And the question is, are you doing everything that you can with every little bit? And so I'm going to help you make more, be able to do more with less. We're going to get into the 10 points, the main 10 points that we're going to get into here. But before I do, one more little illustration about desperation. I don't know whether this is true, HC, or not, but you spent some time in Alabama. They have a rivalry down there between Alabama and Auburn. You think it's kind of big? Yeah, it's a big deal.
Christians are all for Alabama.
Yeah, they are. Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. So, but my daughter, Amanda, she likes Auburn. But anyway, so the story is told, and I don't even know if it's true or not, that Bear Bryant tells this story about this game that Alabama and Auburn were playing, and Alabama was ahead, and it was down to the end of the game, and it was just the last minute and a half or something like that, and they could almost run out the clock. And so he instructed the quarterback to make sure that all I want you to do is play it safe and just do little running plays and everything and try to, finish the clock. We're already ahead by 3 or 4 points. We're okay. We don't have to score anything more or anything, but we got to be able to kind of just let the clock play out. And so the first 2 or 3 plays, they did exactly that. And then on this final play, the quarterback comes back, and everybody's expecting the run because it was so obvious that's what they're going to do. And one of the receivers snuck into the end zone, and he said, now this would really put it away. All I got to do is toss it in there to him, and the game is going to be over. And so he throws it to the receiver, and out of nowhere comes this defensive guy, picks off the ball in his own end zone, starts running all the way to the other end to get a touchdown that would put them ahead. And all of a sudden, this slow quarterback starts running after this guy that is running down there for the points to win, for Auburn to win the game. And on the 5-yard line, he caught him and put him down, and Alabama won the game. And after the game, the guys were asking the interviewers, well, what about that? He said, I never knew that your quarterback showed a lot of speed in that rundown of that guy. And Bear Bryant said, well, it's very easy. He said, your guy, the other guy, was running for 6 points. My guy was running for his life. Okay? When it comes to money, you need to begin to put on that kind of attitude, unless you've just got so much that it really doesn't matter, that it just keeps coming in and, rains money, and you got a money tree in the backyard. So what we're going to do is actually go through these 10 points for the remainder of the time. And so, again, for those that are here, there are not the 10 takeaways, but another 10. So you get double what you paid for today. So we're actually going to go through these 10 points to show you how to be winning with money, even when you may not make that much. You're going to be winning with money if you do these 10 things. And there's going to be certain things, because they are tailored to who you are as a pastor, a Christian leader, or that I'm going to camp on, whereas other situations I may not that much. But and some of them that I may camp on quite a bit, I'm not going to with you. And that's going to be point number 1. Point number 1 is this, write it down: partner with God. Both riches and honor come from you, and you reign over all. In your hand is power and might. In your hand you have the the ability to make great and to give strength to all. You may say to yourself, my power, the strength of my hands have produce wealth for me. But remember, the Lord your God is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. This is a joint effort. You're in a partnership with God. And when you're desperate, what do? You pray. It is amazing to me how many Christian people complain more about money than they do about praying for God to give them wisdom to make better choices or to give them more. It's quiet. We do that. We complain about it, but God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. You think He's low on money and He's your partner? Think about that every day. Go into that day every day as Him being your partner, and He's watching over you, making sure that you make the right decisions. And because He's a God of grace, He actually bails us out of the stupid decisions we often make about money. But you got to partner with God. And there are lots of places that I go to speak that this is a huge point that I rail on. But with you guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of a pass, being pastors, that you actually get this, and that I'm not going to preach to you about partnering with God. But number 2, plan to succeed. Now you're going to get it. If you don't know where you're going, they say, any road can take you there. And here's the thing. You guys don't know where you're going financially. Okay? I didn't just come here to tell you what you wanted to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. What you need to know is you don't know where you're going. Because I know for a 100% fact that it would just be a shocking miracle of all miracles if I said to any of you, you get a pass for the rest of the day, and I'm going to give you $1,000 to take home with you to treat your wife to a weekend if you can bring to me or show to me your written financial plan through the rest of this year, next year, a 2 through 5 year plan, a 5 through 10 year plan, and a 10 through 20 year plan of your finances. Bring that to me in writing, I give you a pass. You don't have a financial plan if you are like most people. Yeah, Wayne, yeah, try that one. You just thought you were getting $1,000. You're getting nothing. People don't have a financial plan. It's not just on pastors. Chances are you have a financial plan. The chances of you having one would even be greater than most of the people that I speak to. 5% of Americans can't produce a written financial plan of where they're going. So how do you know if you're on the right road if you don't know where you're going? How do you know what you're aiming at? It's like the Charlie Brown cartoon that John Maxwell teaches about, in the first frame you got Charlie Brown and he's bringing the arrow back from the bow and he's pointing it somewhere. And in the second frame, he goes up and he paints a bullseye around the arrow that's sticking in the fence. And Lucy, who knows everything, comes up and says to Charlie, knocks on the side, says, Charlie, but that's not how it's done. And he says, yeah, but this way I never miss. That's exactly what y'all are doing with your money, is you're saying, I have no idea where it goes, and you don't have a plan. How do you know if you're hitting the target if you don't have a plan? We say that about churches. Churches need a plan. Churches need a plan. Dr. Buckingham is going around talking to many of you and helping, and you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan for your finances, for your family business. Beacon, my company, we have a plan. We have to adjust it here and there. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. Sometimes we go too slow. But we can always adjust, but you got to have a plan at least. You say, I don't know if that's biblical or not. A prudent man foresees the difficulties ahead and prepares, or better word, plans for them. The simpleton, you think I'm hard on you, the simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. Isn't that a verse from the Bible that God is saying you got to have a plan, you got to have something to aim at? The simpleton is the person who just goes blindly on, just kind of hoping that somehow you're actually going to make it to the end of the month and still have money. Oh, I love this one, Luke 14:28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to do it? Do we use that in church? Is that a good idea, Peter? If you're going to plant a church or anything or start something, is that a good idea that we sit down? Suppose one of you wants to build a church. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost? Is money ever a factor in that or no? Not at all? Just a little bit. To see if he has enough money. So that's planning. So in your financial plan, you've got to, one, determine your values. So what are your values? What are the things that you value? Is it a college education for your children? Is it a retirement with dignity? Is it, to be able to lead the way in your church and give a strong gift to the building program? Is it your health? Are you going to invest in that? I mean, what are your values? So here's a good exercise. Sit down in your family business meeting and, okay, what do we value? And then, oh, and by the way, I know how you can find your values. You say, I don't even really know what they are. Oh, I do. You look in the 2 C's, your calendar and your checkbook. What did I tell you? Time and money, you can never get it back. And the things that we spend time and money into, if you look at your calendar and you look at your checkbook, it absolutely will not lie about what you value. Because money and time follows what our values are. And number 2 on this, we're still in this number 2 thing, but I determine your values and then set your goals. So once you know what you value, to you it might be, buying a pleasure boat or buying a cottage at Beulah. Well, once you know what your value is for your money, then you set goals. This isn't rocket science, but most people don't do it. You set goals to see how you're going to be able to get there. Otherwise, is it just going to, again, fall manna from heaven? I mean, that has happened, but it typically doesn't happen to most of us. I've never had anyone come to one of my seminars and say, well, we just woke up yesterday and there was just all these dollar bills. I guess there was a bank robbery and somehow they got blown into your yard or something, It doesn't happen. You say, I don't know, this planning about money and stuff. I'm too spiritual for that. Well, John Wesley had a plan. He said, I want to earn all I can. That's John Wesley talking. He wanted to make as much money as he possibly can so I can save all I can. I want to be good with what I've earned so that I can save. What does that mean? So not that he could build barns and put all that money in there and, that's not what I mean by saving. But if I spend less and learn how to deal with that money, there'll be more left over to save so that I can what? Give all I can. Absolutely. And so the homework assignment that we're giving you is that sometime within the next 2 weeks, you sit down with your family and you determine short term, you can call it 1 year, and then 2 through 5, you got immediate, and then you got short term, then you got medium goals, which would be 5 to 10 years, and then 10 and after could be long term, and you sit down and say, financially, for the first time in our life, for most of you, you're actually going to sit down and plan something when it comes to, you may not hit it, but you may. You may come close. It'll be a start. At least you know that you're doing something with a purpose. And so that's one of the most important things you can do is to write down those goals. Most people are just winging it. And if you're honest, you would say, I'm just winging it. You need to have a plan. Anybody who wants to go somewhere financially, whether they have little or much, needs to have a plan. If you never have a dollar come into your household, here's your plan. Go get a job, okay? But if you do have money coming from some sources into your household, and it's a limited amount, you got to figure out how you're going to leverage that and what you're going to do with it and what God would want you to do with it. And again, I didn't spend much time on Partner with God, but believe me, this is a very spiritual experience. Praying about all this and seeking out God, seeking out, sometimes other experts or people that are counselors to you. And I mean, I get all that. I'm just not, you didn't come here for me just to give a sermon about that. So now we're on to planning. You've got to have a plan. And if some of you, the next time I see you, next Beulah or whatever it is, could tell me or show me that it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be on one page. The plan for Beacon, my company that I started 18 years ago, and then 3 years into that, I met a business partner. Well, at the time, he didn't know anything about finances, but he used to work for my wife, John Maxon, and I robbed him away from her, and he became my business partner, and he's going to be here tomorrow to the dedication of the fields. He's on a plane right now coming up with my 3 children. Ginny's already here. But our business plan for Beacon was done on a napkin at Starbucks. The only thing we didn't do was keep it and frame it. But it was there. We had a plan. Now, we've made many plans since then about the business. And if a business needs a plan, your family is a business, needs a plan. And again, we could go to other areas, but we're just talking about finances today. You need to have plans, but you need to have a financial plan. You know, it's, again, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but you have people that come up at 55, 60 years old, and they're like, you know, one of these days I'm probably going to have to retire, and we got to live somewhere, Harry. You know, well, what's your plan? Well, I don't know. I don't have a plan. You don't have a plan. Retirement, by the way, is permanent unemployment. That's the definition of retirement. When you're permanently unemployed, wouldn't it be a good idea to know where the money's going to come from to still pay the bills, because you still want to eat unless you just want to starve and die. And secondly, you got to have a place to live. We got to teach the pastors at a young age to begin to look ahead. They may change it 10 times, but at least when they change it, they still have now a new plan on where they might reside in their retirement years, if they ever get to do that. People say that to me all the time. Well, I'm never going to get to retire. I got to work all my life. Well, what if you have no choice? I know people who said that got sick, that had to retire. So what's your plan then? Because that might happen. And if it does, what's your plan? So you got to have a plan A, you got to have a plan B, maybe even a plan C. If this happens, we say we're going to work all this. Sometimes things happen and you can't. That's your plan to work. But what if that plan doesn't happen? Then what? Well, I don't know. We just figure something out then. How about figuring it out now? Maybe you'd have a better chance of it actually happening. So number 3, budget rules. Number 3. Got to camp here for a while, guys. I know we don't like budgets. Problem is, every successful business in America that is successful has one. And your family business, if you have any limited chance even of success financially, and success might just be that they didn't throw you in jail for, you didn't pay your bills, but you just barely made it by, and there was a nickel left in your account when the day you die. Well, ka-ching, you can't take it with you anyway, so that's good. You can tell me if we need to take a 2-minute break before that next thing, but just jump up and scream or something. But you got to have a budget. I mean, talk about must-have. You could look at your neighbor right now and say, I have no choice. I mean, of all the people, you have no choice. I mean, haven't we all said, I have no idea where my money goes? Well, you don't have a budget and you don't have a tracking plan. So why would you? So is that your answer? Is just, I don't have a budget and I don't have a tracking plan and I have no where it goes, and just wing your way through life? And you look at other people that are able to do, sometimes you know that they're in not that large a church and they can't make that much money and they're doing some things sometimes. You're just like, they got a rich uncle, or what's the deal over there? How are they able to do that? Well, they're able to do it because they have a plan, they have a budget, they have a tracking plan, and a budget is a spending plan. If you don't like the word budget, because we don't like restraints, and I used the definition yesterday, I want to be free, in the Christian church, we want to be free. Well, I want to be free too, but guess what? When I go down the road, I want there to be a yellow line down the center, and I want those people going that way to stay on theirs, and I want my people going this way to stay on mine, and I'm glad for the restraints and the laws that keep people in line most of the time. Aren't you glad for that? So we love those things when it's to our advantage, like keep us alive, but we don't love it in other situations. And so we don't like, I can't do a budget. What do you mean you can't? There is no such thing as can't. There's only such thing as won't. There is not one person with intelligence in this room or listening to this that can't do a budget. You can do, you just don't want to. According to the Wall Street Journal, nearly 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's your budget. That's your plan. Here's something for you, if you haven't figured this out yet. If your outgo exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall. Okay? You can't have more outgo than income. Well, you can for a while because you can borrow, but eventually the house of cards is going to come crumbling down. So you got to have a budget. So somewhere where there's a spare piece of paper, this is what you need to write on that, because I'm going to tell you basically how to do a budget. And then I'm actually, well, first, write this name down. Joseph, Joseph, or something like that. I don't know how to spell. Joseph, Joseph, last name Sangl, Sangl. He's one of the resources I'm giving you today. He's a Christian guy out of South Carolina and speaks at churches like a Dave Ramsey or whatever. Dave Ramsey's great too. Go to his resource. Here's the good news. You don't have to spend money to learn about finances. There's so much free stuff out there. They ain't stealing. There's free stuff everywhere. You can go to Joseph Sangel's site and you could literally spend 250 hours on the resources that he has there that are free that you can download and use and look at anything about money. Now, I didn't tell you that too early. You wouldn't have come to the seminar because you get everything from him. But you can. I did it before I came up just to check. There's a budget on there, and you can download it, and you can print it, and it's free and whatever. But you got to kind of tailor it to your own. So here's the key. Top left corner of your page, you write the word income, and then put a line under it, and then you actually, if you're going to actually sit down with a budget, you sit down in your family business meeting with your family, and you look at what are all the sources of income now into our family business household, and look at the income and when does it come and that kind of thing, and then kind of break it down to this is how much it would be per week, this is how much it would be per month, this is how much it would be per year and everything. Okay, I mean, you guys can do that. So you put down then draw a T on the page underneath there somewhere. Draw a T, and on the left-hand side of that line going down to the T, you put the word needs. You put the word needs, and then you start listing all of the things underneath there that in your household are needs. We must eat, okay, and all those kind of things. Now, don't put a dollar amount yet, because hopefully today before you leave, you're going to learn some ways to even spend less on some of those things than you already do, but you got certain things that are needs. And then on the other side, you put wants or other, because I know for a 100% fact that everyone listening today does not just spend every single dollar that comes in for income into their family business on needs. There are some things that are a choice that you choose to spend money on that you don't have to, you just choose to. But the needs are there first, and then the choices. Then you decide which of those choices do you really have to have, and if you narrow it down to 3 out of the 7 that we're going to keep spending money on, what are you going to put for a limit? But first what you have to do is go through what the income is and then down to the needs. Now, I don't have time to show you how to even reduce or eliminate some of the needs. But some of the things that we say, I have to spend this much money on, you don't have to. It is actually a choice. You just call it a need. You don't have to have an iPhone with all these fancy things on it. You just choose to do that. You don't have to have the greatest cable package on the television. and you like sports or whatever it is that you like, you choose to do that. There's a lot of things that you count as needs that actually in many places on the planet would not consider it a need like you consider it a need. They would definitely consider that an extra or a want or an other. And so you can say that, but it's really a pretty narrow list when you actually get down to this is actually what I have to have. And then, do I have to have that kind of whatever it is that I have? In other words, a car or things like this, which I'll get into later, but do I have to have that one, or is that just the one that I got sold? Not you bought, but you got sold, because most people don't buy cars, they get sold cars. Now, most people need them, although not everyone does that actually has one. And there are people who say, well, you know, in family households today, if you're going to live in America, and we have to have 2 cars. Well, my sister and husband in Fredericton are pretty, responsible, reputable people that have 2 successful pastor families on the district, and they're in their 60s, and they've never had more than 1 car their entire life, and they've made it work. So you say it's a need, but when it comes right down to it, the needs are really low. And by the way, I'm speaking to wealthy people here today. I'm stealing some of my thunder in chapel tomorrow, and again, don't Google it and get your iPhone out. And some of you I can't see, but the rest of you I'm going to keep my eye on. But if you go to globalrichpeople.com or richlist.com, globalrichlist.com, and put your income in, you'll find that in Canada, if you make $41,000 gross as a family, you are in the top 1% in the entire world. 99% of the world make less than you. If you're in the 99% and you're looking up at the 1%, would it be fair to say that the other 99% are saying, that's the wealthy people right up there in the 1%. I'm down here in the 99%. If you make $32,000 in the United States, you're in the top 1%. So the needs that we say we have, a lot of the wants that were over in that other column have come over here, and we've made them our needs. Then, even if they have to stay in there, like transportation of some kind or a roof over our head, we actually make decisions over what that's going to be too, what kind it's going to be. And, I'm a respectable pastor. I have to have certain things, and we justify a lot of times with our budget. I've gone to meddling now, but, Proverbs 27 and 23 says, be sure you know the condition of your flocks, give careful attention to your herds. That was their day, shepherds. Would it be very important that at the end of the day they counted the sheep and they actually were accounted for all the things? So what am I saying here? A budget is a waste of time and paper. You just wasted all of your effort, ball it up and throw it in the trash and never come back to it again if you're not going to have a tracking plan. It's you can sit there and you can put down the income, and then you can literally, and this is fun, try it. It'll be a waste of 30 minutes of your life. You go down the left page on the needs and the right page on the wants, and you fudge all these numbers, and you make all of this outgo equal. If I make this 300 down to 285, and this is over here, and that income, our budget balances. We got a balanced budget. Yay, Pete's going to be proud of me. It's useless, worthless. Throw it in the trash. You have no idea if any of the numbers that are beside the categories are actually realistic. Well, I think, we spend around this much. What do you mean you think? So, at Beacon, my company, we're in the financial business, but it wouldn't matter if we were just in the widgets business. So we sit down for a board meeting, and we kind of around the table, 3 or 4 of us, and it's like, well, how much did we spend on marketing last month? Well, I think we spent about $9,000, and you pull that out of the air. Well, what did we spend on staff? Well, probably $65,000. I mean, so you start, how successful would a business be if that's what they did? Nothing. No, when we sit down to the board meeting, give me the profit and loss statement, and I want to see exactly what went out. Now, these aren't maybes. This is actual, we know. How do we know that? Because we have an accountant, we have bookkeepers, we have people that track all that, and they bring in the things, and this is exact. We know to the penny what pencil, what pen, everything that we did. How can we run a successful business? How can you run your successful family business if you don't know those things? If you don't keep up with it? Well, I think, we do pretty good compared to a lot of... What's that have anything to do with anything? Start comparing yourself to other people. By the way, Rachel Cruz, which is Dave Ramsey's daughter, their office is just around the corner from ours. It's a little bigger. But she just wrote a book, Love Your Life, Not Theirs. Think about that one. Don't be looking at other people and comparing and wanting and everything. Love your own life, not theirs. We get into so much trouble by looking at other people instead of our own life. So in the budget, this is going to scare you. So here's the ideal budget. This is what I want you to get to when you can. Okay? It's not going to be immediate. But I live my life, and I have pretty well my entire life, on a budget that's 75% of take-home. Not the gross, because the gross is, there's things that... I want to know how much spendable money comes into the Benson household. 75% goes to living expenses and the standard of living that we've chosen to live in, if we choose to do that, which this isn't our budget now, because we can live on a lot less than our 75%, but we had to start there to get to where we're at. 10% goes to God, and then, obviously other offerings and gifts and so on. 10% goes to yourself for your retirement future. And 5% goes to emergency funds, other and unexpected things, and you want to give somebody a special gift or whatever you want to do. So it's a 10, 10, 5, 75. 75% is what you choose to actually run your life on. And as soon as you can get that down to 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, all the better. But 75, 10 to God, 10 to the future. Why do we do that? I'm going to get there later. But life's biggest financial expense is retirement. You will spend more money on keeping yourself alive and fed in retirement than you will buying a house, cars, college education, or anything you do in life. It's life's biggest expense. People retire now, and even if they work long, 65 to 70 years old, of course, HC and Dr. B, they're going to work till they're 95 and a half, but
He's already 90.
he's hearing this somewhere. But let's say that it's 65 or 70. It could be a 20 to 25 year period. My wife has longevity in the family. Her aunt and uncle on Graham and Ann died. The uncle was 90, the aunt at 94, 17 hours apart earlier this year. How cool is that? Died on the same day. Her dad is 90 years old. Her mom is 87. She lives long. I gotta work long and hard to keep her in victuals to the rest of her life. But people, I actually have some retired people now that have been retired longer than they worked. No, seriously. We're able to work in a government job that they actually retired like in their mid-50s, and they're in their mid-90s. They are retired longer than they worked. As a responsible financial advisor, if a couple comes in at 65 years old, if I don't do a plan up for them for their retirement for at least a 25-year period, I am totally an irresponsible financial advisor. It's life's biggest expense. So you can't, and here's where I'm going to really preach at you, and I'll cover more of this later. You can't not let your church put adequate and more, if they're willing, into the pension fund or whatever than what they're supposed to. You can't get them off the hook and let them do less. And I've known pastors to do that. And you can't do that. You have responsibility to your family business and to the wife or husband or someone that you looked in the eye and said, for better or worse, I'm going to protect you and I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to be responsible to you. Don't you have an obligation to them and to your family and to other things? So anyway, so how do we track? Well, you know, all you young guys and girls, you got all these fancy apps and all that. Help yourself. I know what works, and it's the old-fashioned thing. You get one of those 3x5 spiral notebooks that you can get down here at Shoppers Drug Mart, 3 for whatever, $2 or something now, and you get one of those, and it's easy. It's about the size of your wallet, and so each day when you get up to go out and do whatever you're going to do, you leave your wallet on the shelf at home and you put that book in there. It's amazing how little money you spend throughout the day. That actually works. But you don't actually have to do that. You can put it in the other pocket behind, or the lady in her purse or in the car or whatever. And this is not, again, very sophisticated. It's just the best system that I've ever seen work. And when somebody can give me a 10 to 20 year period of apps that actually work and all that kind of stuff, and you know, I tweet and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm into a little bit of technology thanks to a lot of help from young people in my office. But when it comes to this, you get one of those spiral notebooks, and let's say it's November the 1st, because that's when y'all going to start. And you put November on the first page, 1. You turn the page, and all you have to do is know how in that month to count to 30. And on the next page, you put the number 2 at the top. The next page, you put 3, 4, all the way through 30. Anyone in the family who ever spends money. You know, you got a 17-year-old daughter that stops and gets gas in the car, and it's not her money, it's your family household, then she's required to do this too. And every time money goes out, you just write it down on the page of that day. This is very sophisticated, isn't it? So it's the 5th of the month, you stop down here and got gas for $25. You get back in the car, you open up the page, you write $25. It's that sophisticated. You stop at Tim's like I did, $1.85, you write that on. Every time there's an outgo, the utility bill is paid, the cable bill is paid, the day the check is written or it leaves your account in the morning, you write down exactly what that dollar amount was. You will never, ever, in the rest of your life, ever have to say, I have no idea where my money goes. You will know. There is only one way to know, and that is to track it, to add it. And at the end of each week, you look at each category and you add those up. And at the end of the month, when you have your family business meeting, you pull out the books. The books don't lie. And the books will tell you exactly how many times you stopped at Tim Hortons, how many times you went to the grocery store, what each of those were, exactly what you're spending here, here, and here, and here. And if you say, we got to find some money, like somehow here we've got to either decrease outgo or increase income, then we got to do one of those things. And by the way, I'm just going to camp there for 1 second. If you increase income or decrease outgo, you're doing both, the margin is even bigger. But if you do one or the other, at least it's a help. So if you actually get to the place where you say, there is no possibility of even $1 less on the outgo, what needs to happen? Got to have more income. So you got to be resourceful. I don't think the leaders of our district, if you could get what you need done, and your church is growing and thriving, and everything's happening that they actually use as a measure, and you're growing personally and professionally and spiritually and everything else, and your church is going up. And if somehow you had to find 5 to 10 hours to deliver pizza or do something, are we okay with that? I mean, in the Bible, lots of people were bivocational. And again, this is not my place, probably never get asked again, but I think there are people out there that their position should be bivocational, and we're trying to make it a position where that's all they do. It's unfair. It's unfair to them and everybody else. And again, I come back to the whole work thing and productivity and a whole different seminar. But it's not how many hours you put in, it's what you get done. Like what shows. If I can work 2 hours and I can get a certain productivity, is that okay compared to someone who has to work 7 and gets less? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not how many hours did we work, it's what did we get accomplished. And if you find ways to get more accomplished, then you do the things that need to be done. Are you using every gift that God has given you as human beings? Or maybe is there something that you could be doing in your off time? Let's say you do work 8 or 10 hours a day. There are 24 hours in a day, 7 of which I sleep, and the other hours of the day are mine to do whatever I want. I can spend as much time or as little time, or I can choose to allocate for eating and other things. This morning, just like yesterday, just like every day, I'm up in the morning, and I'm not here to brag about me. And listen, there's so many things I'm working on. The list is so long, I have to live to be 400 and a half. But I'm down at the gym. I'm working out. Because I know that the healthier I am, and the better the oxygen flows through this body, then the more I can get done in a day. I know that. That's an investment. And it's investment in dollars too, by the way. I go off to another tangent because I happen to be able to get the super preferred rating on life insurance. So I can pay the same amount as somebody else my age and get more investment dollars for the buck than they can. Now, there are certain things health-wise that actually you have no control over. Nothing, you could do everything right and it hits you and you are not at all in fault with that. And I know that's the case a significant amount of the time. I also know it's a significant amount of the time that we have some fault in that because of choices that we've made. I want that if I'm going to be working in a given day, that I can't do what I need to do as productive as if I go to the gym for 45 minutes and I work out first thing in the morning, which I run in my neighborhood, 5:30 in the morning. You can find me running down Cool Springs Boulevard every day. I got earphones in, and I'm listening to Chris McClarney, Matt Maher, Lauren Daigle, and a bunch of things. And this is just me, but I've made a pact with myself that every single day when I wake up, that I will not look at the internet, emails, Hillary and Trump, turn the television on, or any other thing until I drink 1 liter of water, go to the gym or somewhere and work out for 45 minutes, and while my mind is the freshest, pour good music and thoughts into my body, soul, and mind before I get on with the day. And I have to believe that although I still got a long ways to go, and listen, you guys do 1,000 things better than I do, that helps me be productive the rest of the day. It absolutely does. And so I'm actually investing in what I can get done the rest of the day by starting the day off right, by doing certain things. And here's what I found. I have been blessed. Remember, money buys you choices. And listen, when you need a lot of help, you go to a lot of things. And you have a lot of coaches. But as you have money, you can either spend it and buy things that don't give you anything, or you can invest it. And yes, I need a lot of help, so I go to a lot. But I actually have coaches, life coaches, that I spend considerable amounts of money on, more in 1 year than I ever paid on a formal education, to coach me on different things. People like Tony Robbins, people like Darren Hardy, who is the editor of Success Magazine, people like Bo Eason, people like Don Yeager, and the list goes on of different categories of life. And here's what I found, that every single one of them have a morning routine that they never vary from. There's something about that. And almost every one of them, they believe that in order to produce in a day, that this body that they have has to be treated right, and it's time and money to them. It will give them time and money because of what they invest here. And I got a little bit off track, but what I'm talking about is if you need more time, you find ways to leverage time. And so what did I do? I went to time management courses and seminars and people that could teach me how I can get done sometimes in 3 hours. No, other people could probably do it in an hour. So I still have a long ways to go. In 3 hours, what some people can do in 8 hours. And what I did is when my company started to do well, I could take that money and buy bigger, shiny things, or I could take that and invest it into things that could actually help me be more productive. And so anything that I can farm out to somebody else that they're better than me, if you have margin and you've created extra money, you can pay people to do that I choose not to do. Not because I'm lazy, because I think I work long and hard and get a lot done every day, but I actually put it into the things that actually, I look at every hour and I say, is this an investment or is it spending? Have I spent that or have I invested? I do the same with my money. There's certain things, and I will admit, there's certain things that I, quote, spend money on. There's not going to be much return there. It might have been a temporary, finite return, but that's it. And there's things I spend time on that I do that. But I look at time and money as precious resources that as much as possible I don't want to be spending, I want to be investing. And so what am I getting at? Some of you are good at computer or website design. Some of you are good at certain skills that actually could make you more money. Some of you could take in someone in your community that is looking for a room or a renter, and you can utilize the resources that you have to get more. There are ways to get, more if more is needed. And if you learn the ways to cut some costs and bring in more resources, learn a skill. I mean, there's a reason why rich people have big libraries and poor people have big TVs. Like, again, I'm far from the measure of all things and have much to learn, but while I was going to college here and trying to pass, which I didn't make great grades, so believe me, that ain't going to show, but I got through working, taking care of a family and everything. I'm also investing time into money books. I'm like, if I'm not going to have much coming in, how can I learn to stretch this to make more? Does that make sense or not? And so I did, not knowing that eventually this would become a career and a passion and a whatever, but I did that. And so, again, not trying to make everybody feel bad, but we make time for the things that we want to make time for. And people say, well, I don't have time to learn about that skill, or I don't have time to learn about that. And if you look at the fluff in most people's life, if you work 8 to 10 hours and you have 7 hours left over, you can get a lot done in 7 hours in a day. You can work a good full day and get a lot done and still have time left over. It's what do you do? I call people up. What are you doing? Just sitting here wasting time. I'm like, dude, seriously? Wasting, And so you got to ask yourself, is this an investment or am I spending? And if you invest and learn about money and how it can, then that's like putting more money in your pocket. When you invest in your health and you spend less on health costs in your later years because you actually did everything you could, at least, to take care of your body, and you wouldn't have believed that if you saw me eating the seafood platter over there at JJ's last night. So believe me, I'm not the measure of all things, but man, that was good. I had to run extra long this morning. So I do that because I also like to eat. And I can't remember down through how many decades or years have ever gone by that I've never had chocolate in the day. So in order to do that and to feed that vice, I have to actually make up for it. But all of those things are playing into it. So there are ways to find more money. You just got to open up your mind. And it's not sinful, it's not wrong if you know that you're doing it for the right reason. I mean, do kids need college money? Do things happen that you need money for? And I mean, are there lots of great causes and things that come your way, and missionaries come to your church and other people are putting money in and you're like, man, I wish I could put more than that? I mean, there's a whole different lesson on the difference between wishing and wanting. You see, seriously, I could go, and I got to quit that, but most people wish things were different until you get to the place where you want it to happen. You're not going to change anything. Wishing, when you think about wishing, it's like on a birthday and you got the birthday cake sitting out there and you think this high crazy thing like, you're going to go to the moon or something. Oh, I wish I could go to the moon, or I wish I could, and it's always something that's never going to happen. If you want something, you actually can make it happen. If you only wish for something to happen, and most people never get beyond wishing. You sit there and you're like, well, I wish that were different. I wish that I felt in better shape, until you want to. Until you feel desperate enough that you're actually willing to act on it, wishing isn't ever going to do anything. So, number 4, control debt. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Can I put it any more clearly? Does the Bible speak about money or not? The rich rule over the poor, and the servant or the borrower is servant to the lender. Here's the words, guys. Look before you leap. Is there another way to do this than what I'm doing? So I'm going to teach you how to pay cash for cars. Sometimes you just run into things because you're either bullheaded or it's dumb luck. So I never went into this situation over on Prince Edward Island in Crapo. What a name. Crapo, PEI, it's 1984. I'm 25 years old. Okay, I quit having kids after that, but we already had our 3 kids, and so there's a family of 5, and we're going to start a new church. Man, we're just rolling in dough. So, true story. 1984, interest rates are fairly high, inflation, Jimmy Carter was president, that kind of thing. If you need to borrow money for a car or a house or whatever like that, the interest was high. If you ever had money and you put it in a CD in a bank, you could make 12%, 15% just by having money. So I go into the bank there. It's the Bank of Nova Scotia, right there on the corner in Crapo, PEI, because we needed a car. Okay, we had to have one car if I was going to go visit. Is there still such thing as pastor visits or anything? I didn't think so. So, I had to go visit around PEI and start that church, so I needed a car. So I go into the bank, and they tell me when I sit down with a person that in spite of the fact that there was very little money that I could show that was actually going to be paid to us, that they would give me a loan for $2,000 for a car. And so I left there with the papers, and I go back home, and I start looking through them. And pretty soon I holler out, Jenny, does this make sense here? I mean, does that saying what it says it's saying? that we're actually going to buy this car, and we're not going to pay $2,000 for it. We're going to pay $2,900 for it. Because of the interest that we're going to pay as we pay this car, we're going to pay $900 more, which is almost 50% again for this car that, not that $2,000 would buy much, but that 2 months later is going to be worth significantly less than what we bought it for. So I'm going to pay appreciation for something for depreciation. And I'm just stubborn enough that I looked at that and I said, I'm not going to do that. Jenny's like, but we have to have a car. And I'm like, yeah, but we're not going to do that. I couldn't I couldn't steal a car. That'd be a good way to start the church off. So I said, how much money do we have? So we looked in all the bank accounts and the piggy banks and everything, and to spare, we had $800. So we had to buy a car for $800. I haven't even used this clicker at all here. So, hey, does this even work? Scott, you with me? It did work? Come on up here and help me out here, brother, or something. Oh, there it goes. So anyway, man, we should have been doing all this stuff. Oh, you got to see this later, too. Can I get by this? I'm hitting it twice and it's not going by. What am I not? Okay. See, oh, you like this? I have a diversified retirement plan. 30% hopes, 30% wishes, and 40% prayers. I missed all kinds of good stuff. So I get here to debt, plan to succeed. Okay, see, there's your budget, debt. So anyway, so $800. All right, God, you got to find us a car for $800. We got $800, God. And so we prayed, asked around the community, looked around, did all the things you could do, and we found a car that we could buy for $800 cash on the barrelhead. So we paid cash for the duck car. Do y'all know what a duck car is? That's an orange AMC 1972 Hornet. So it was only 12 years old then. There was an older couple in the community that we could buy that from for $800. And where it got the name Duck Car is Ginger and Amanda, when I would take them to preschool, Ginger would look at Amanda and say, Duck, don't let anyone see us. Because they were so embarrassed, they actually made me let them off at the end of the driveway so nobody could see the duck car. And to this day, if they were to come into this room and this wasn't up here and you just said duck car, I mean, we talk about it at least 10 times a year still, the duck car. So we prayed over it. I don't know anything about mechanics or how to run anything or whatever, but somehow, through the grace of God and duct tape and a few other things, this thing kept going, and we kept it going for almost a 2-year period. And one day, I'm coming home from Summerside, PEI, in visitation, and I'm in Borden area, maybe 10 miles from Crapo, and all of a sudden, the inevitable that I knew that we were living on borrowed time began to happen, and I saw steam come up underneath the hood, and I was just like, if I can just get this power steering, off to the side of the road and get this thing out of harm's way. And by the time I was done, literally, I couldn't even see in front of me. The steam was just, it was just out of sight. And I knew the baby was gone. So I got out of there, and there wasn't much to pick up that was anything of any worth. I looked around the vehicle, and I got out. And back then, in the 80s, you could throw your thumb out, and it was, people would pick you up, and it was safe, and they felt safe, and you did, and whatever. It wasn't any time. About the third car that went by picked me up, took me home. I walk in the house. Jenny's like, I didn't hear you drive in. I'm like, oh, well, that's because I didn't. I hitchhiked, and then I walked up the driveway, and I started in the yellow pages to look for one of these places that I'd heard tell of, like a salvage yard that would actually not charge you. They would actually come pick up your car and use it for parts, but you didn't have to pay them to tow it there because they got the use of the vehicle or whatever. And I called them up, and I've never seen that car. I didn't go back. No, I didn't go back to the car. They towed it, and when I walked away and put my thumb out and got on that car and looked behind me, that was the last day I ever saw that car. So the next day I go to the bank. And you see, one of the things I've been doing is, okay, answer me this. So if I had gotten that loan and paid $2,900 for a $2,000 car, would I have had monthly payments? Yes or no? Yes. So all this time I had monthly payments to a separate account that was going to be the next upgraded duck car that we were going to buy. But here's the beauty. And there's a lesson here that most of you aren't going to get. Money can either work against you or it can work for you. And when I put my money in the bank each month, they gave me interest on the money. They did that back then. They actually paid, seriously. Some of you are too young and you don't remember, but there was a day they actually paid interest. They paid you to keep your money there instead of you paying them to keep it there. And they did. And so the money I put in for the payments, plus the money I made in interest, now I was able to buy the next duck car, not just with my money. You see, the first $800, it was all my money, Ginny's money, our money. But the next time, it was ours in the bank's. They actually helped me. Oh, this is so good. So instead of me paying them, they helped me buy my next car by letting me buy more car with less money because I had my $2,000 and their interest and went and bought the next car upgrade in cash and did that ever since all of the 15 to 16 years that I was in the pastorate. Once you do it once, it's like, this is easy. Just always pay a car payment to yourself, put the money aside, upgrade until finally you can buy better cars. And I can't help but show you this car that we actually get to drive now. Now, here's the thing that you normally say when you say, well, that's a waste. You know, anybody that spends money on a Maserati, you don't have to do that. Here is the fact that I pretty well know. That anybody that's listening, watching this, and every person that is here, percentage-wise to income, I paid cash significantly less. This isn't to brag or anything, this is significantly below my means of what I could. And so if somebody is making $50,000 a year and they buy a car for $20,000, which isn't unheard of, $20,000 on $50,000, all of you great mathematicians, see if anyone's awake, what percentage of the yearly income is that? 40%. Believe me, and I don't need your approval and you don't need mine, and I'm not here to brag about other than brag about God. If you ever want to live an out-of-body experience and walk around your whole life looking at your spouse and saying, only God, that's what we do. And anywhere that I have an opportunity to share it in my business and everything else, I say only God, and He gets all the glory. But that's significantly below 20% of what my annual income that God has blessed me with right now. So it's easy sometimes to look at people and say, yep, that's where they live and what they do is that's just a waste. And yet, at the same time, you're living above your means and they're living significantly below their means. Just a thought. Again, love your life, not theirs. But here's the thing. Many pastors, many Christian leaders, and most people are buying cars they can't afford. They're buying over because they get sold. Somebody tells them that they qualify for it. You don't even go to buy a car anymore with an amount of money. You go to talk about one thing, payments. That's what you ask. Not how much money do I qualify, how much monthly payment do I qualify? Not how much can I afford, how much do you qualify for? And how many people have gone when they actually buy a house and they say, we've sat down, we've done the research, you can do that on the web now, and the house that we can afford is $150,000. What do you think percentage of people that go to buy a home that they have done their own qualification for $150,000 that actually end up purchasing one for more money than $150,000. Over 80%. Because the realtor says, well, I've done some math too, and you actually qualify for blah, 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 blah. Oh, do I? Really? So most people, again, normal is broke. Most people, their house payment is actually this percentage of your income, and you told me it was this. They've already done the money. They've already learned how to upsell you. So you either control your spending or they do. And for most of us, they do. If you don't have the plan and you don't decide what you're going to do, someone else is going to decide it for you, and most of us are letting someone else decide it for us. They say, well, you don't buy cars that way. And they come back with this crazy stuff like, well, today the interest rate is not as bad, and they let me do this and they let me do that. Bogus. It's ridiculous. Yeah, well, I've been, and I've been told how, we can lease payments and do this and that, and I've said we get new cars and trade them in, XYZ, bogus. One time, see, I do fail, lots. I bought a new car. That's not a new car. I can buy a new car. I won't. One time, I failed. Never happened again, never happened since. It was 25 years ago, and never buy a new car. Well, yeah, but I figure because of this, okay, go ahead, that's fine. But anybody who's, I typically buy cars that are 2 to 3 years old with low miles on them that I can pay cash for, and I run them for a long period of time, and believe me, I do this for a living, and I don't know everything in the world, and there's people that do this for a living that disagree with me. They just happen to be wrong, but that's the way to buy a car. And I'm telling you that many of you are buying cars and other things that you can't afford. And when hard times come and you get sick or some disability or some kind of thing happens and you're stuck with those payments, there's something beautiful about anything that you have and being able to say, I own it. Now, God and I understand all that, but I own it. Remember, choices, freedom? Whew, I don't know them. I'm not beholden to them. So how did we get in this mess? America is the largest consumer society in the world. We currently owe approximately $1.2 trillion in consumer credit. Consumer credit are things that we've already consumed that's just gone. $3.7 trillion in mortgage debt. Now that might still be, we might still have the house, but consumer things are you go to the restaurant and you buy it on credit and you owe it later, but you already consumed it. And then you regret it. And so people ask me all the time, because Dave Ramsey said nobody should have a credit card. Well, I'm not disagreeing with him because I think that we all could live without them. But here's what my rule of thumb is. If you've ever carried a payment over where you didn't pay it off at the end of the month, in the last 24 months, you shouldn't have a credit card. If you have a long history of always paying off exactly what you owe, and you know that when you give it to the restaurant that you got many times more than that sitting there ready to pay it when you do it, and you've responsibly proven that, I think it's okay. I use credit cards, I use the points and all that kind of stuff, and I haven't had an overpayment or a carry a balance for decades. So that's okay. So I think that's the rule of thumb. Otherwise, use cold, hard cash. Here's what I will tell you. When you hand somebody, like when I went to Tim's, I handed them a $20 bill. Canadian $20 bill to get this. Got a bunch of change and stuff back. I guess that's dollars and whatever. But anyway, so it hurts when you're looking at real money, handing it to them. It doesn't hurt when you hand them a card and you're talking to somebody and you don't even know if they put the right amount on there, because it doesn't feel like money, does it? It doesn't really feel like you're parting with money because of that, but there's something about cold, hard cash and putting it in your hand and watching somebody else take it that the credit card doesn't give you that. And if you're not being responsible and disciplined, then that's what's going to happen. And so the average American spends $1.22, get this, $1.22 for every dollar that they actually spend because of extra interest on it. Car interest, mortgage interest, and interest on credit cards. So that thing that you see that's on sale, that you say, I've got to get it now because it's on sale, you actually end up, if they had a sale out there at Walmart and said, typically $1 with a line in it, but today it's $1.22, would you buy it? You are. I say you, people. Again, do you want to be normal? That's what normal is, so help yourself. I want to be weird. I want to be different. I want people to say, really, you still do that? Absolutely. Because normal is broke. And you're looking at everybody else around you and you're seeing all this stuff and everything, you have no idea. I do. They come and see me. They're a disaster, a mess. Here's what happens. 43% of Americans spend more money than they make every year. Here's the thing, guys. We're buying into this thing that as we make more, we can live a different standard of life. I make more and I want to lessen my standard of living. I want to get to the place, and I'm not there yet, where I can give 90% and live on 10%. I want to live on less. And there are ways to do that. And so we got to figure out how to not buy into that. Because here's what's happening. This is a great illustration. A person that's making $30,000, again, I said this before, but they're saying if I just made $40,000. The guy who's making $40,000, that this guy who's making 30 says, if I'm there, I'm free, baby. That's all the margin I need. I've got everything. The guy who makes 40, he's looking at the guy who makes 50. So what happens is, every time we get an increase, we just increase the spending in lockstep with it. And the only way to have more is to learn how to make more and spend less, and then you can do that. And you're not going to do it by paying higher for everything almost in life than what it actually says that the price is, because that's what you're doing for all of the goods and services that are out there because of credit. So does the Bible say that debt is a sin? No, but that's just one of the mistakes. No, I'm kidding, okay? I wish it had been a little stronger, but it is fairly strong about debt. It says it's ill-advised, but it doesn't call it a sin. So it's between ill-advised and sin. But it's insanity, and we gotta do something different. So you say, well, what if I'm one of those? What should I do? Okay, so this is going to be quick, and is this going to be recorded at all? We got 15 more minutes, right? Or 10?
13, actually.
Okay, boy, I'm telling you what, dude. Probably down to 12 now. So here's where you start. If you're one of those that's gotten themselves in a position, because by the way, the next point when we come back from the break is create an emergency fund. I'll tell you what the number one worst emergency fund on the planet is this right here. That is not an emergency fund, was never designed to be one. God said it in one of the verses. We just haven't figured out what the interpretation is yet, from Greek to whatever, but that is not an emergency fund. So what if you found yourself in a place now? And listen, I have a heart. I meet people every single day who do all the right things, or as right as any of us will ever get, and bad things happen to them. That is absolutely not their fault. It happens with health, it happens with money, it happens with other things. Absolutely, health costs and something happened, or they went through a divorce, or what. I mean, there are certain, listen, I have a big heart. I'm talking to the people who you know that it was your decision that got you into the mess. And I'm not here to crack the whip and beat on you either. I'm here to help you. I'm here as a volunteer today. Thankfully, I have people back home that are actually, keeping the business going. But I'm here as a volunteer. But here's what you do. You do a plastectomy first. You cut the plastic. That's what it is. It's a plastectomy. So you get the scissors out and you cut it up. How can you be sure? Wayne, you like that? I'm a surgeon, man. You didn't know. So how can you know you're not going to, if you've been undisciplined to this point, that you're not going to use it again, ill-advised, if it's not gone? It's got to be gone. If it's not gone, then you're not serious. If you're not serious, then you're wasting your time writing this stuff down. You cut up the cards and stop the bleeding. Number 2, you create a budget and start living by it with a tracking mechanism. Number 3, you begin a program to pay off any of the debts that you have. Again, I'm going to stop right there. Not the mortgage. If you own a home, now you may have bought too much house, and that's a whole different matter, but let's say that, remember depreciation and appreciation? The only thing that I can think of right now, other than a college education, which is a whole other place where I could help people at least cut their college education loans down between 50 and 75%, but most people are going to have some kind of a loan. Other than that, which can be investment or it can be spending. Some people have just spent the money. Some of you, as parents, have had kids that just spent the money, and there's no investment return at all. But it can be an investment. But other than that, a mortgage, under the right circumstances, is typically an appreciating item. Therefore, people who have mortgages on their home, I'm cool with that. I mean, I say that generally because there's some people that bought ill-advised at a time that was ill-advised, paid too much for it, all kinds of circumstances that I would have yelled in their face and said, no! But I'm just talking generally having a mortgage and buying a home as a general, not to you specifically in your particular situation, which just yesterday I advised a person who was thinking about it that's renting, continue to rent. It's better for them under the circumstances. So it's not just always to buy a home. But anyway, I digress, or whatever they call that. But so you start paying off, and mostly we're talking about credit cards, the smallest balance first. Why do you do that? Because you got to have wins under your belt. You got one that's got $300 and another one's got $3,000. Get the $300 one off and then celebrate. Pop your own popcorn in the middle of the floor with a blanket in front of the fire like me and Jenny and the kids used to do for our activity as a family for family night when you don't have any money. You pop popcorn. Have you ever done this? Seriously, you lay a blanket on the floor, get the popcorn. You know they put that cover on it. Take the cover off, put the thing in there. You lay on the floor backwards. Okay, you get on your back. Everybody, all 5 of us on our back. The popcorn's going up. Who can actually catch in their mouth the most pieces of popcorn? It doesn't take a whole lot of money to actually have fun as a family. We learned that. But you pay the smallest card off first. Then you start in on some of the other ones as you go. But again, when we come back from the break, I'm going to have to shuffle between, because people say, do I pay that off or do I get the emergency fund first or all that? The answer is yes, all of it. But there comes a point where some of this does have to be just individual to you. that it's not going to be the same for everyone, but generally just start cutting that down. But if you stop the bleeding, that's a big part. Fourthly, have a yard sale. You bought junk, you're going to get pennies on the dollar. Pennies are better than nothing. Get rid of some of the stuff that just is in your face that actually reminds you of the bad decisions you made. And you're not going to get anything for it, but you're going to get something for it, and at least get it out of your life, the clutter, the everything else, and do something. Seriously, I'm Kijiji. Is that how you pronounce that around here? And at the same time, you are creating an emergency fund. You got to be creative, guys, girls, everybody. Seriously, you got to start being creative. Find ways that you can make some money. I dare say that if I sat one-on-one with every single person that's listening to this, within an hour, I'd find a creative way for you to have more income that's coming into your family. Guaranteed. And so there are ways to do it, but we've got to get rid of the debt. Parkinson's Law. Most of you have never heard of it. Developed by the guy by the name of C. Northcote Parkinson many years ago, and explains why most people retire poor. The law says that no matter how much money people earn, they tend to spend the entire amount and a little more besides. Expenses rise in lockstep with income. Financial freedom comes from violating and breaking Parkinson's Law. That's what we have to do. We got to stop being normal. Society says that's what you do. I'm saying they're all broke because I'm the one that gets to talk to them. So just take my word for it. It's the weird people, the abnormal people, the people that aren't swimming with all the other fish downstream but are going the opposite way that actually, and they don't always look like it. If you ever read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, the whole theme is that the people actually in life that have money are the ones that don't look like they have money most of the time. So we're going to stop there and come back. And we got 5 more to go, so we're going to do it in 1 hour. But some of these ones have been longer. Some of the next ones, some of them are only going to take like 5 to 7 minutes in total. So we're going to fit all this in. It's no problem at all. We good? We're good. We're all right? Just so all the rest of you understand, there is one person still awake, okay? So enjoy. We're going to go eat, and then we'll come back.
Okay, thanks very much. Restroom break downstairs if you need it, and then over to the cafeteria, and I think we're